Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Adventure Story series from Ranch Bookings. The Adventure Story series, for those who don't know, we interview industry experts as well as resort owners to talk about their best practices, their stories, and get their best advice. It's been a lot of fun, and this week I think we're still really bringing the heat. This might be our best one yet. We were fortunate enough to spend some time and interview Francois Corrand, the owner of Goosewing Ranch and the father of my partner, the technical co-founder and the original founder of Ranch Bookings, Matt Chu. I won't dive into any details on their story, but they have a great one coming from France. And then Francois was really generous with both his time and his advice. He talked about and gave tips for all ranches, really, to talk about how to stay occupied, how to increase their occupancy, and he talks about it in reference to Goosewing. So there was a lot of great advice here. Francois, thank you very much from both Matt and I, as well as all the ranchers who watched this. Just again, being generous with your time and your advice. This was a lot of fun. So without further ado, for anybody who's interested in participating in our Adventure Stories series, or you're interested in ranch bookings and how we might be able to support you, just send me an email. Thanks for watching and enjoy.
Okay. Well, Steve, thanks for having me. But first of all, in France, I was a pharmacist, an emergency room pharmacist first. That's my background. And after my residency, internship, residency, I left the hospital and started a medical home supply company by myself. And at the time in 1980, I was pioneering this activity in France. There was not much, probably in the US, maybe 5 years earlier it started, but that was the time when really the technologies allowed us to take some of that of this equipment at home. Anyway, short story, I developed this activity, and in 1992, 12 years later, I sold my business to a big company. Big companies at the time wanted to buy market shares in this activity, so I was quite at the right time, at the right place at the right time. And after that, I took a long vacation, a year vacation, sabbatical, and I came to the US as a tourist with my family. Matt was 92. How old were you, Matt? 93?
4 years old.
4 years old. 4 years old. So, yeah, we came to the US, and at first, I bought a trip with a tour operator, and I asked, okay, I already knew California. I said, okay, what about the other coast? What about Florida? And the tour operator said, no, no Florida in July or August. I send you to see the cowboys, Wyoming, Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas, the traditional tour, auto tour, and that's what we did. And actually, when I arrived in Jackson, I stopped in Jackson. The last 3 weeks of the auto tour were spent in Jackson because I really loved the area, the energy that was boiling in town and around Yellowstone National Park, and I said, oh, maybe I should reinvest here, and this is how it started.
Wow.
After that, I had also, somewhere along the road in France, I have the MBA. So my business studies were telling me that if I wanted to invest somewhere, I was to find some nice political surrounding, stable financing, stable business surroundings. Of course, no nature threats. Don't near Yellowstone. That's not that's not the right thing to do at one point. Anyway, and so Jackson were checking pretty much all these boxes, and I said, okay, now what kind of business? And I looked at the winter business, and I first bought my snowmobile tow company because the structure of the business was pretty much the same as the one I had in France. I was purchasing equipment, the snowmobile, and then I was renting them, these machines, and providing a service around it. On the medical home supply, it was of course maintaining the equipment and providing the doctors with some tests. But here I was providing a guide and the transportation and all kind of stuff around the equipment rental. So pretty much the same kind of business, different machines, different clientele, and of course different actors. Instead of going to see doctors to get prescriptions, I was then I went to see the tour operators to get the business or the hotel concierge, and then next I about the summer business, and I wanted to buy some real estate, so the guest ranch was the logical step, you know.
Did you have any reservations? That's a big 12. You did medical device for 12 years. You were able to sell that. Now you're working with travel operators. You're doing similar things like you said with the snowmobiles, but it's still an industry's change, like you said, going from doctors to travel operators to then Goosewing working with cowboys and things like that. Did you ever have any reservations as you were making that change? You were experienced in business, but it was still
beside of course the stress of changing the country and language, and when you have to sign your first check with a lot of zeros on it, it's quite stressful if you do not understand completely the language, but or the culture. But no, I mean, what the reason why I sold my business in France was because of the emotional load that I was not able to carry. I know your story, your background, Steve, and for me, after a while, it was too much to carry the pain, the illness,
Mm-hmm.
the death also, the passing away of my clients, of my and anyway, so that's why I had to change business.
And that's a big, I think a lot of people who go through that, for me, it was obviously coming out of the military as a medic, but, you see it with ER docs, a lot of nurses, pharmacists who work in the ER, you kind of hit that point when you're dealing with a lot of end of life care. And so it was time to make a change. You were able to come out of one side. And so what was it like right now? Like you said, you're buying a business in a new country. It's a new language. You've only vacationed there. So now you're going to start this, and Matt was 4 years old. You have you have two kids under the age of 10, I believe, plus or minus, maybe right in there. So what was it like starting this business with a young family?
Well, I mean, it's the right age. I was 36 or 30, 36 at the time, and I wouldn't do it right now. I mean, I wouldn't be possible. But when you are between 35 and 40, I think that's when you are on your prime. Actually, if I want to point that out, it's also the average age of a lot of my colleagues who came, who were not born into the guest ranch industry and who came into the industry at about the same age, because I guess it's the time when you're fed up maybe also with the big companies, with the corporate stuff, and you
You've
want
got the
to be a little more on your own.
Yeah, you've
And
got the experience to take the risk, but you've also got the naivety to follow through with the risk.
absolutely, and the courage, the courage, the grinta, the yeah, the you can put the, I mean, the 14, 15 hours work days are uh, feasible at one point. After a while, it's kind of wear on you. But that when you're at this age, I think it's the right point.
It's the right. Well, okay, so now, and this is perfect for it, Matt. I really want you to tell. I've heard this story, but for anybody who's watching this, about one of your first memories. I think you've said you ever have, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of memories about the early days of the ranch. So I remember, leaving Jackson on that first vacation, and he was sitting in the plane, like browsing the classifieds and looking at real estate already. So that was after, our first vacation. He was, so in love with that piece of nature over there in Yellowstone and Jackson and the Gros Ventre that he was already planning on doing something. And then so I have also lots of memories of first getting to the ranch. So that's a couple years after, since he first started with the snowmobiles. But first seeing the ranch, and he had been abandoned for 20 plus years at that time. So I remember stepping into the big lodge, which is where everyone has their meals every day. And there's, how it is, like there's rotten carpet on the ground. And, I thought that he was crazy and that, we were going to be in the streets pretty soon. And then he opened with, 4 cabins out of the first 8 that were on the property were nice enough to be rented. And I think the rest were employee housing at the time. And now I understand a lot better with hindsight what the strategy was, and how it was started. And I remember going to Paris from Lyon, which is a couple hours in the train, but it's the big city in France, and meeting with the tour operators and the travel agents. That was the business trip that he took me on at I think I must have been 6 or 8 years old. So yeah, just growing up in that environment of trying to figure out what's feasible, and having the vision to follow through and make it into what it is today.
That's
yeah. So it's been fun growing up and seeing the ranch evolve from the rotten carpet and 4 cabins to beautiful property with 12, 13, and the glamping site.
So that's kind of like a perfect segue here. I think everybody in the guest ranch industry knows and can see Goosewing and sees what you accomplished over the last more than 2 decades. Matt always kind of jokes, and I've heard you say it, right? People they come in for the lifestyle, but they stay for the money. I kind of, this is a 2-tiered question, is when you bought this ranch, as Matt said, it was dilapidated. So what was what kind of projects, or has there been any major projects that we can talk about that you've done to the ranch to kind of bring it up to par? And then 2, Goosewing's generally pretty filled. Whenever they're open, you have higher occupancy, as Matt and I can find looking at the data, than a lot of other ranches out there. I'd really like to know, and for a lot of the ranches who are listening, how do you stay filled? How do you, in those off seasons, in those shoulder seasons, generally when we're not dealing with what's going on right now, high seasons are pretty standard to fill. But Goosewing does a really good job about filling and staying higher occupancy on the shoulders.
You see, the thing is that, see, I didn't start for the lifestyle only. I really wanted to find a business, okay? And everybody is the same. But since I didn't know nothing about this business, I went to the to the European tour operators to find out what if there was a market, if some customers would exist, and what they would like, to have, how we should design the cabins, what kind of activities they would look for, and so I had since the beginning, I had a customer-oriented process since I didn't know nothing about the activity. I didn't, and this is also why I wanted to buy a piece of property and starting from scratch, because I didn't want to be to inherit some strengths or flaws from a prior owner. I wanted to do my own thing. And since I was coming from Europe, I felt that one of my strengths would be to get customers from the European market. So that's how really I started, to do a marketing evaluation, an inquiry about what kind of product, what kind of price, what kind of clientele, what would be my target, the whole marketing process for the strategy is what really guided the ranch. We built the ranch to answer this question.
Well, and so in answering that question, identifying, your mark, who your true customer is and what they look like, what did you find out about, are there higher numbers of folks booking from France, from Italy, from Germany, from the UK? Was it a worthwhile endeavor to search out overseas potential guests, or should ranches stay focused on the US?
It definitely helped me at the start. Right, and still now, I mean, Europe is still 30% of my market. Of course, not this year. I mean, this year would be quite special. But sometime on the opposite, it's good to have different markets, because if you have one that goes down, maybe the other ones will help you to sustain your business. But through the years, I started with maybe more European clients than American, US clients. And then, of course, it shifted through the years when I was able to fill up the ranch. So from this first step of marketing strategy based process, I went to a more authentic process when once I was able to secure a cowgirl to manage my ranch, who is Amy, and everybody knows Amy in the business, Amy Worster, my GM. And that relationship we have together is family. She didn't grow up, but she finished growing up with my kids, so she's a niece to me, probably even more than an employee. So
well, and that seems to be a common thread for a number of ranches where they have employees who aren't necessarily children who work for them. How do you see, for this is kind of a good point here, for ranches who are listening to this, who have that second or third generation, maybe they're looking at not necessarily passing the torch, but preparing to hand off for the next generation. Obviously, that's something you're going through. What advice would you have as far as, how do I prepare my ranch for my kids, or for that stellar employee who's going to take the reins when I want to sit on the porch and drink tea all day?
Well, I mean, once you go through the different departments, the different areas of the business, the hospitality, the activities, the maintenance, there's a few different things that you need to master. But once you do that, then you need to to trust the kids to take care of the day-to-day operation, and maybe little further down the road they are taking care of more than that. They take care of also some long-term strategy. And well, it's very gradual, and everybody does the same. It's nice. It's growing. It's growing into the growing kids into a family. It's the same.
So what?
We're not talking about corporate here. We're talking about family business.
And that this is kind of the perfect spot for it, because branches are, for a lot of these are family businesses. These aren't corporate. How would you say you developed, as you're handing more and more responsibility, day-to-day operations, long-term planning to your kids or a younger generation? How are you gearing the business to match? Now, Goosewing's done a great job, obviously. Matt's here. So, Ranch Bookings implementing software to help you manage things in the office, display real-time availability. You've been able to do those kind of things. What along those lines would you recommend for other ranches who, maybe they still have, you go to their website and they still say, call this number or email to find out more?
Well, you always have to put you in the shoes of your client, and you want to be a client yourself at one point, and imagine how you will book your vacation. And I think so far, a tour operator or a travel agent, even a US travel agent, have a very difficult time to book a stay at our ranches, any ranch, for some reasons. For a few reasons. First of all, we have limited availability. All of us, we are, except a few big ranches, but we usually have limited availability. Second, we have a difficult price structure. Some ranches have a very difficult price structure, very difficult to understand by anybody else.
Anybody.
It makes sense to the owner. It doesn't make sense to anybody else. The third thing is, it's difficult to describe the complete concept, complete package to a travel agent. So, now we have more tools, videos or whatever to bring that to them. But in the past, it was difficult. But anyway, so far, so even if now travel agents can understand what the concept is, they still have a problem, I think, with availability on one side and with the price structure. I think, like all the hotel business has now come to a completely standardized price structure. It's very well established, which was not in 20, 25 years down the 20, 25 years ago. It was not as established as it is now. Even consider just 10 years ago, some hotels were charging internet, not charging internet. It was okay. So now, the business model is worse. I think the ranch industry needs to come to this. As an industry, one of the things we need to unite is to propose the same kind of price structure to everybody, to all the customers, tour operators, travel agents, and consumers, so we can be understood from everybody.
That falls in line with a lot of things Matt and I hear from the guests of some of our customers when they reach out, or other, not even just our customers, but guests in general. They go to a ranch and they have a hard time understanding exactly that price structure. And I think there really is something to be said about the industry as a whole being able to standardize, the way they present that information.
And of course, then that allows you to um, to book online, which is not book online is not complete the entire booking online. It is to finally, you know, finish the booking online. You can. We have maybe 3 or 5 inquiries, or 3 or 5 bookings without any phone contact or email contact,
That's it.
during for the season. And we have to call them back and make sure that everything is well understood. Everybody, we do a lot of course, we do a lot. We do all our bookings now online, and every one of our guests pretty much is giving us 2 phone calls or 2 emails before.
Yeah.
But then they book themselves. They book themselves at the time they want, when the time is good for them, on a
Yep.
Sunday. And, they book also from Europe with 10 hours difference, time difference, which is, if you don't do that, it's very inconvenient. So I think a good example would be to go see some boat rental outfits. I'm talking about the moorings, for example. The moorings, it started small and now it's all over the world. It's a big, big company. And I think really what try to rent a boat, either chartered boat or just a freight rental boat from them, and you will see how easy it is. And you can choose so many destinations,
Yeah.
from Greece to the Bahamas to the BVI's to the Pacific Islands. They have bases everywhere, and you can book your boat everywhere with very, very easily. And I think this is a good example of what a good price structure and internet presence,
Functionality, presentation. So, and all right, so I want to go back just a little bit because that was perfect. I think there's a lot to unpack there. For anybody who's listening, and Francois, please correct me on anything I'm about to say, but the customer journey or your potential guest journey, it's not about everybody hears online bookings and the initial fear is, oh my gosh, somebody's going to book and they're going to come here not knowing what they're going to get, then they're going to leave and I'm going to get a bad review. We know that that's a minority of folks. As you just said, very, very few of your reservations go through and get booked without somebody ever talking to you. And if that does happen, you call them to confirm. So we'll put that kind of over here. We can't use the minority for the majority. And the general process of the guest is, I'm in my research phase. I go to your website. I'm looking, maybe I'm here in Ohio. I'm a few hours difference in time. I want to be able to look at your site, do my research, find if you have the basic information, availability, close to the dates I want to come. Then I'm going to call you. I'm going to go through, I'm going to talk to you on the phone. Then a few days down the road, I'm going to finish dinner with my wife. We'll put the kids to bed. We'll have a glass of wine and we'll say, okay, let's go ahead and book this vacation. Now I've already talked to you. I've already done my research. Now on my own time at night, I can go to your website and I can book my vacation. I think what you're really talking about is putting our ranches, our resorts in a position to allow the guests to take action when they want.
There's a few more things. Sorry. This online booking and payment system will allow you less work to process a booking, a lot more quality, because there is no more mistake. I'm not even talking about booking 2 clients on the same cabin at the same week. it used to happen sometimes 20 years ago. Now, we cannot even imagine that it would happen, but it did happen. When we were just dealing with paper and pencil, it did happen. But not even that. Just think about that. All what you're doing is discussing the product with your guest, and you leave the payment and the finances to an online stuff. So you're not known as a sales agent. You are perceived as the host already. You are the host. You are explaining what you will be doing. But money-wise, you separate that and it will go directly, anonymously, pretty much, through the internet. And this is very, I'm not saying that it's gratifying, but in a sense, yes, it is gratifying because you're not trying to convince people on the price of your product, but on the quality of your product. It's all what you're doing.
That's really important. I think that's absolutely. I think that's really important. The idea of being able, as a resort owner, to separate that sale. You're talking about the product, what you can do for them, the experience they're going to have. Hey, when you're ready to book, when you're ready to look at these prices and things like that, you can almost separate it out. That way, you don't have to. You can let them do it on their own.
And we can always explain. Some stuff. But if you do a simple enough price structure, you don't have even to explain. It is self-understood, and people won't have too many questions about it. See, what we are doing right now, at Goosewing, we're selling in about, I don't know, let's say 20 minutes time period, 2 times 10 minutes on the phone. Very often it's two phone calls. 2 times 10 minutes. What we really talk about is it's basically everything but price, because the pricing is very easy to understand, and we don't talk about that. Everything's included, of course, but beside that, what we're talking about is the schedule of the day. Do we provide housekeeping or not? Do we what's the dinner situation? Really, we describe
the experience they're going to have.
No more pricing.
I remember.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I remember, when you were talking about 12 to 15-hour days, in the beginnings of the ranch. That was why. It was because you couldn't turn up for the day because you had to be there to man the phones pretty much at all hours. And I just remember sitting in the office while you were on the phone, Dad, and it was just mentally exhausting because you're doing all that. Okay, we're explaining what the ranch is doing and what the product is, and then you have to move into, all right, let's see when we have room to fit you. So you move into a whole logistics conversation, and then you move into explaining the rates. And so, yeah, each of those phone calls were exhausting.
Oh yes. What I want to emphasize also is that it's not the owner or the manager now who needs to answer these calls. In the past, it was true because there was the pricing and there was, it was complicated. So we felt like it was really our job to do it. But now, no, it's young ladies who are very good on the phone, who are smiling on the phone so much, that they are so engaging that it is so easy for them to do a good job in a minimum of time. In the past, as Matt said, I remember that between 4 and 6 in the morning, that was my 2 hours of European time. It was when I was answering inquiries from Europe.
Well, and it sounds like what you guys are really talking about is putting the customer first, putting as you're explaining the experience and everything, it's about the customer, it's about what they're going to be doing and what they're going to be experienced, and allowing and making the rates simple enough that it's not a complicated conversation that you really even need to have. And in that vein of easiness or efficiency, Francois, how many, when we were at the DRA conference this year, I remember at least once or twice you showed that, hey, we were just sitting in this conference and oh, by the way, I got 3 bookings.
Well, yeah, that's also that. That's the beauty of it. It's you're not obliged to be on the phone to get the bookings. Uh, Somebody in the office somewhere is, as I said, answering a few emails or a few phone calls, and then um, at any time you receive, I mean, you see some bookings coming with the feeling that you didn't do nothing to get these bookings. Actually, you did some, but it's really nothing compared to what it was. Yeah, and the timing of these bookings really sometimes surprising, but actually, it's about the comfort of the moment for the guests when they book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, it sounds like doing this way, it's the difference between, this is going to be a really bad analogy. So if this is that bad, I'll probably end up cutting out this part of our conversation. But it's the difference between fishing with a pole and spear fishing. You know, with a pole, you can cast your line into the water, you bait your hook, and you can let it sit there and you wait for it to come. Spear fishing, you have to be engaged at all times with your customer to get the sale. You know,
Definitely a good image. Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I like that. Oh, that worked out well. All right. I'm not going to cut this out. Bingo.
The yeah, the thing also, you know, I think about the new generation. The new generation is definitely guests or hosts. The new generation is definitely more and more and more at ease with this kind of process, right? So I don't think you want to really go back to your own standard. Actually, it's always the same thing. The old, the old, the older generation always think that experience is so much better than enthusiasm. Sometimes, you know, you need some enthusiasm.
You need that enthusiasm to get them over the finish line, huh? Well, and I think that's everything we're talking about is as we look well, and as we look forward over the next year, you know, life is eventually going to get back to normal. I think a lot of the competitors for ranches here over at least the next 12 months or so, the cruise lines, the Disneys, and the things like that are going to see an obvious decrease in the amount of bookings that they're going to get. So from my perspective, and Francois, tell me if I'm wrong, you're the expert on this, but it looks like there's a pretty good market opportunity for ranches as we kind of come out of this and rebound.
Okay, well, the European market is considering now. You know, we are entering into the usual cancellation time of all our cancellation policies. So this past weekend was a huge cancellation wave from the European market, a little bit from the US, but the European market can just not come to the US this summer. You know, French, Italy, Spain, this is over. It's the government will not allow the airlines to do this kind of business. Well, you know, it will be difficult to come to Europe. It will be difficult to leave Europe to the States. So the domestic market, I think, is still trying to figure what they will do this summer. I'm not sure. I am not sure at all that we will see a lot of 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 bookings, to tell you the truth, this summer. We might see. I mean, I myself, I lose 30% of my business from Europe. I probably will lose another 30 to 40% of my domestic market. So I will be at 30% of my normal revenues, gross revenues. I think that's about what I figure now, and it can get worse. It can even get worse. I don't think we'll see a lot more. Of course, I don't think Disney or the cruises will do a lot better than that. They would do even worse, maybe. But I don't think it will. I think it will be very difficult to try to do a great season. I am probably, as everybody else, I am completely looking for some insights, from all kind of avenues to try to guide me into that time.
Well, and that's
So,
the one thing we can say here is that
to be
everybody's
able
in it
to
together.
say right now, what will we have a great opportunity? I'm not sure.
Coming up, we're here at about an hour of our call, so we're coming. We can go as long as you want. As long as I have you, Francois, we will keep this conversation going. But what advice, now that we have a number of ranches who are watching this is your opportunity. The whole video has been your opportunity to knock it out of the park and give great advice. But specifically, what advice do you have for ranches? And this is kind of a twofold question. The first question is somebody who's looking at opening or starting a ranch, or maybe they have recently opened and started a ranch. What advice would you have for them to grow their business? And then the second part of the question is, what advice do you have for ranches who already have an established business and they just want to make sure that they're marketing right, maybe working with the right tour operators or travel agents?
Well, we're talking for we're not talking short term for this year. We're talking about midterm, long term.
Yep. 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What's our planning look like over the next 1, 2, 3 years?
I think if starting with the DRA, everybody who is a member at the DRA, rather than trying to get some marketing ideas, and this is different from what I heard at the conference last January. But rather than to try to get a marketing committee, for example, getting some ideas of marketing, I'd rather try to work on price structure and product definition. This crisis will turn back some customers, some consumers to the travel agencies, or at least tour operators, because the European market is the UK and the German market are really depending on the tour operators. The French, Italian, Spanish market are more direct, direct ranch to consumer. It's more it's not a B2B, it's a B2C.
B2C
business. What I think will happen that the South Europe consumers will go back to tour operators because of the safety of the payments they can make through the tour operators, the certainty they have to be refunded,
Yeah.
to be better taken care of.
Yeah, that concierge aspect almost.
So in other words, I think for the next 4 or 5 years, I would definitely work on having a big presence on the tour operators / travel agencies / travel advisors, travel planners, all these different corporations that work also directly with the consumers. Don't underestimate what a tour operator or a travel agent can do for you as part of the work also. It is definitely a working relationship, and they will do some work for you.
And will you expand on that a little bit?
The-
Ranches obviously pay a commission to travel agents, and a lot of the pushback from resorts is, hey, I don't want to give up that kind of commission. But the commission is worth it. Not only are you getting the booking, the travel agent or tour operators taking some level of work off your plate.
in any kind of producing business, I don't know how you say that really. Let's say a guest ranch business, the main business is not to sell. The main business is to provide the experience. Everything, every minute that you spend in the office to sell something is not in the core of your business. Does that make sense? It's not what you are
Absolutely
ultimately paid for at the end of the day.
Well, and that sounds, it goes back to what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, everything that will reduce the time spent in the office to sell will be a good thing. First of all, by booking online. Second, by sometime using some other sale people, and they are named tour operators, travel agents, whatever. And you have to pay them something, they need to make a living for them, but they will do a job for you. And sometimes they will do a good job for you. I'm not going to say that they will be a better job than you, but they could do a pretty good job for you. And it's not, at the end of the day, when you consider the P&L, the profit and loss, of your business, you see that the sales expenses might be very well taken care of by more volume and less employees in.
So you're really creating an outside sales force for that's how you're viewing travel agents and tour operators is, yeah, they're taking work off your plate and you're developing an outside sales force. So it sounds like two of the big things for Goosewing's, not success, but two of the more powerful things that Goosewing does is you've created an outside sales force, and B, you've created a booking process and a pricing model that is easy to understand and easy for the guest or tour operator to get through.
Yeah, well, in any kind of industry, the sales force need to master the selling process. So if you provide your sales force with a very well standardized, a very efficient and simple selling process, you're a winner.
Yep. That's fantastic.
And I think myself, or Amy, it's even more true if you consider Amy. Big points are not, or big strengths are. She's not a salesperson. she is way too honest to be a salesperson. To make sense. No, but the idea is that she is not the best salesperson. She is a she's great at a lot of things, including selling the ranch. But she is so valuable in some other areas that she can definitely give the key of the sales to somebody else, to a good sales force that you have to train and to of course nurture, um, and will do a good job. So you have your tool, which is the reservation program, the property management system, the online bookings. I mean, all these tools. You give that to a sales force if you want. I mean, you can keep that to yourself and put a sales force in your office, but you can also have a great sales force outside. And if you have these two things, then you get the ball rolling. And this is, I think, how you can expand the industry as a whole.
That's really fantastic advice, and I would say for any of the ranches listening, the homework or the takeaway from this is to do a deep dive into your selling process. Look at it from your potential guest side. How easy is it for your potential guests to research and book with you, and look at your sales process as an employee, as a function of your business that truly needs refined and refocused over time and consistently.
Yeah. Once again, uh, you'll take a look at that small paper that I will send you, and you maybe you can share that. But I think it's pretty obvious that it's to me it's well, it is definitely worth my
Time and
worth my
effort.
commitment.
Absolutely. And for anybody listening, Matt will put together a blog post to go along with this video with the sheet that Francois is talking about. We'll put all this together so all this makes sense. So when you're watching that video, keep an eye out for a blog post as well. Go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, I was about to go on my cruise line and big resort rant, uh, which is that we hold like this like the products they're offering, right? It's terribly plastic and corporate, and I think it sucks, and I will never ever go on a cruise. Uh, but what they definitely got right, and what we have to give it to them is that as the sales aspect goes, like they've figured that out. You can go to any travel agents ever; they are working with the cruise companies. So that's the funny part about all this is that I was picturing, okay, what does the travel industry and the cruise industry look like post Corona? Will people still want to go on those huge boats and be all trapped together? And I do think that people will, try and get away from them, but they have such a presence and a sales force that I'm not even sure if it will matter, right? They can penetrate the market so well that people just know about the cruises, and booking a cruise is easy enough.
Yes, but I mean, I would really be careful here. Um, do not think that the big 5,000 people cruise boats clientele is the same as our clientele.
Oh no.
I don't think we're talking about the same target here. I'm not sure that you can convince these particular cruise clients to come to a ranch very easy.
Oh no, that's not what I'm trying.
We are not known to party like crazy at any time of the day. We're not known at being lazy around the pool. I mean, it's not the same type, I think, of clientele, the same type of vacation. We're talking about. Well, let's talk about some some bigger resorts, not necessarily in the cruise industry, but some bigger resorts on the beach where you have maybe also more affluent people paying big money to be on a spectacular location, but still in a crowded atmosphere. These are I think, the clients we need to convince to come to us.
I agree. I really agree, and I think it's going to be an interesting trend of people who are leaving maybe larger cities, those California ranches, people leaving San Francisco and LA. Some of those folks, I think you're right. I will push back. We're absolutely not, going to get folks from the party cruises and things like that. But I think of my father, who they did a cruise up around Alaska. I can't necessarily see them. Going on horseback, but I can definitely see them foregoing a cruise to do a more nature-centric, unplugged.
I think that the cruise you're talking about is a nature cruise.
Yes.
If you talk about the 100 to 500, 300 people boats cruising around
spot.
Alaska to look for whales and white bears, polar bears. Yeah, I mean, I think they're the same. These are the people that we want, definitely.
Absolutely. But when you start getting above that, those larger 5,000 person cruise ships, that's
no. I don't think that's the right target.
I agree. Well, man, this is flown by. So now we are actually at an hour for this interview, Francois. Thank you so much. There's been so much great information here for everybody. I'm not cutting you off to say goodbye. We can stay on and keep going, but
okay.
From everybody who's watching, I think you've just given so much. I think I can speak for everybody when we say thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge, your experience, and your story.
Share my story, my knowledge. I don't know about that. Okay. So thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you, Francois. Matt, go ahead, and if there's anything you want to say, let's go ahead.
Well, yeah, thank you, everyone, for watching. We've gotten some great notes and thank yous from ranchers around our circles. We're just super excited to be able to provide you these kinds of content, and we just love hearing from everybody. So send us emails, ask to be interviewed. We just want to learn more about you guys. I know that around the DRA members especially, there's many people that have similar story to my father, that they had a successful career and then were ready to get away from that. And every time I learn one of those stories, it's just a lot of fun, and I love being able to help you share that. So let us know.
All right,
okay,
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much for watching.